If yeah, yes, recommended. Okay, we have videos. A ver, YouTube. No, there is a blurb that one made, but yeah, it doesn't.
Now, are you in control of all the shenanigans going on in Pelican?
Oh, wait. Here,
Uh,
this is what you have.
I just,
This is an item. Ah, that's not an item. Sorry. On the
are you in control of the monitoring?
yes.
So I don't have to worry about it.
Yes. Like right now, everything came back. We are rolling from the kitchen.
Yeah.
Interesting. So nobody has joined yet.
Sometimes we go on.
Yep. Hope that doesn't break. Barbara Pollock. Hello? Hello, hello? Hello?
Hey.
Hey.
Hi, everybody. Welcome.
Hi, welcome, welcome to.
Hey.
I am Alejandro. I will be the tech guy today.
Okay, we're here.
I'm hosting the live. I'm 3 users at the same time. The stream camera, MKV1 and MKV2. Yes, I'm on 3 devices.
Hello.
Hey, Juan.
Hi,
You
Barbara.
there?
Hey, Juan. Hey there.
Hey, Terry.
Hey,
Hey, Terry.
Ta-da. Eleanor.
Hi. Okay. Oh, Juan, I have a question. So what time should this be over?
I just sent you something back. I'm sorry. I was saying hi to people. I would say let's do an hour in a few minutes, whatever.
Okay.
Right?
All right.
Yep.
And
Is that good?
second, yeah, that sounds good. And then the second question. So you'll introduce me, I'll speak a little bit, and then the discussants and respondents will speak. Do they just go one after another, or do I introduce them, or how do you want to do that?
Let's see. Hi, guys. I'm busy on the phone. Just get yourself around. All right. Do you know about all of them?
Well, I have the list of the names. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see who's gonna be here. The idea is I'm not participating. It's all you guys and Raul. So I'll say hello. and then see who is in the screen, right? And then I will introduce each one on the screen.
Okay.
1 second. Can you see if you can
Paul,
lower the volume and all
You
the
disconnected?
lower the volume?
You
and-
disconnected?
I did this once that way.
Yes, I don't see you.
Okay. Sorry, I had to handle. We have a nice bunch here. Not too many people. Good. So Terry, this is Alejandro MKVI.
Yes, internet out.
Who's that?
No,
Let me see if I
internet
can
out.
get
It says
my headphones.
all over the internet. Yeah, that's the one.
Oh, okay. 1 second. Let me get my
I believe Raul
headphones.
just connected.
I'm connected.
Okay. And behind me is Revolution Books back there.
Everybody should probably mute
And
themselves.
Terry, your
Yeah.
piece looks very cute up there. Right?
And I have an apocalyptic image as well.
Oh, good for you.
Now. Right.
Me too.
Okay. Here you are on top of Shubing,
I
right
love
there.
Hey, Terry. That piece looks even better on the Pulaski Bridge.
It does indeed.
Let me see.
Don't stand too close for
There
to
you are.
Juan.
There you are.
The vibrato will appear.
Who is there now? Raul?
Okay,
Cheers.
Michael Richards.
Raul is having a glass of wine. Very good.
It's not shared.
Raul, are you doing your thing? Yes, Raul, come in here.
Hello. I love your glasses. Very,
Me?
very, very apropos.
Which one?
You.
Me? Oh, they're
Yes.
smiling, you see?
And Alejandro in the back here.
Thank you.
And there's Alejandro behind the controls
Yeah, I can show myself.
with his siren behind it. Oh, is that my thing? Oh, yeah. Okay, very good. Okay, and Frank is here. Frank.
I hope nobody bombs us with Rudy Giuliani.
Let's see if we get everybody. Okay. Okay. Oh, I'm giving you a walk around here. Yeah.
Okay, we have 11 people.
That has the sound. You lower that. There's a level in the back. No, that's okay. Okay. Right here. With that, you can hit here and lower the volume. Okay. Sorry, I'm trying to lower the volume in the house. Okay.
So how many people were they?
Right now we have 2, 4, 5, 6.
Minus 3 because I'm 3. I'm 3 at the same
yeah.
time.
Okay.
9.
Very
We
good.
have 9.
Very good. Eleanor,
Yeah.
all right. After we see who's connected, I think we can just
Hold on.
maybe we should have. Maybe we should have each one introduce themselves and give
Right. Yeah, that sounds good.
like 2 minutes, right?
Are you going to come to the talk?
Yeah.
Today? Okay.
Yeah, we are. Yeah. Can you hear me now?
So I'll talk to you now, okay?
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, good. Okay. So I'll call each one and they can introduce themselves for, let's say, 2 minutes. Yeah. They can say what's the reason why they decided to join us. Let's hope Tania Bruguera shield works. So far, I haven't seen her attempt. She might be in blood. She,
Oh, Joanna?
Tania Bruguera.
Tania Burguera. I don't see it.
It's coming from Cuba, but they tend to knock her out, their VPN shield, quite often.
Yeah, the VPN. Well, she's not showing up.
Frank,
We still have 8 minutes.
you want to connect?
listen.
They're all here. Already.
Stay to the end. It looks
Just
like
sit here.
there are a lot of people.
Sit here. Yeah, yeah, sit there. Here, let Frank, no, let Frank sit
Because
there.
people will take mask off,
By
right?
the way,
No,
this discussion
nobody-
panel is going to be
either.
broadcasted on White Box
If I'm
Facebook
alone
page.
somewhere, without, if
Um,
I'm alone
if
with,
you guys like to
But-
share it,
Frank,
the link is available right now. Like right now, we
let
can see
him
each other
sit there,
on
yeah.
Facebook.
There's no sound here, I muted them. Okay, so kick in because we're gonna, okay.
Oh, wait. Two people more. Two more people. Abu and Christine Davis.
Huh? Okay. Okay. All right. Frank is gonna join in right now. And
Hey, I remember your. Hey, Pedro.
okay.
Sí.
All right.
También el cabello.
Where
Hey,
is-
Abu.
Very good. Okay. Very good.
Could
Okay,
you start
Raul,
your
you can
camera?
sit there. All right. Okay. Frank,
The Cuban lady. She's
is he connected?
not yet.
No.
Christine is there.
Christine is there. Okay. Give her.
Yeah, but she needs to.
Okay. Okay. Did you ever see the? Oh, I'm getting an echo right here. It's no good. Okay. Right there. Yeah. Yeah. Did you ever see?
Hi, Christine.
Hi.
There was the Trump people were. There was a caravan of vehicles midtown. You ever guys see him?
No.
No? Ah. Hey, Abu.
Yeah.
Very good.
Somebody there?
Okay. Okay.
Doctor, I don't remember.
Hello. Would you like a paper cup or a plastic cup or anything at all? There.
All right.
No, you know you're already live on Facebook, right, Juan?
Are we?
It's already live on Facebook.
Yes, because it's connected to Zoom. Yeah, thank you. Absolutely. Okay.
I do that.
We have, all right.
Later we can edit that thing out on the.
Raul Zamudio, Abu Farman, Terry Berkowitz, Eleanor Hardney. Okay, so Abu Farman just joined us.
Yes,
Abu,
it's somewhere there.
say hi.
It's okay.
Say hello.
Very soon.
Very good. And Frank.
So I'm gonna mute myself.
Okay, do that. Okay. All right. Where is Levin Hayden? All right, Raul, you're there. Okay. MQVI. Make sure the volumes are low.
Yes, of course. I wish, I would have gotten some stuff, but the guy in charge, right?
He doesn't want it.
No, because he thinks
Okay.
people will like
All right.
lose their inhibition.
Pandemic, and then it could aid in a super spreader.
Right? Isn't that was the logic behind it? So otherwise,
457. Okay.
it would
All
have
right. Frank.
been balls to.
Okay. As Frank.
Hello, how you doing?
Yeah. Okay.
I always bring something with me. This is
Very good.
Well, then cheers.
cheers.
Okay. Good.
I always travel with a flask of scotch all the time now.
So I'm going to go on the back. What are you gonna stay? Or?
Medicinal. It's medicinal, especially in the era that we're living in right now.
And you guys bought your own. I saw you bought your own red
Well,
wine.
no, the thing is, yeah, but
That's okay. I always bring something.
No, but
I always ask one. I'll bring a bottle, but this person doesn't want the alcohol at the opening, right?
well, no, the director is worried that if there's alcohol drinking, people will start taking their mask off.
Just start spitting on it.
Yes, it could be a problematic situation.
Don't lose it.
So while we have a
I got
couple.
more. You can have one too. They're on the front. Your revolution books.
That's not a pro-Trump sticker, is it?
Good.
No, Trump can't shop now.
Yeah, but you said that also.
And after I said it, I was wondering if he's a Trump
You also
supporter.
said that figuratively at the front where Revolution Books.
I meant the front. I should say the front of what? Oh,
Social.
that's right. Are you the clerk curator?
Yes, I am. Hi.
We met in Union Square.
Okay.
It was a handmade.
Unfortunately,
Remember?
yes, that's a lovely performance.
They were out in Washington, D.C. last week. They got arrested. So they was
Am I in the right?
beyond their trouble.
Here.
Well, then maybe you should interview about what has happened. Did you talk on? I'm sorry. About what happened with the arrest?
Yeah. Very good. Are you connecting, Elizabeth? If you connect, you have to do it right now. We have a few of us. No? Okay, fine. Okay. All right, here's. Hey, what? Okay, so you can come towards the end as a respondent.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, of course.
Okay, we have here someone from the Red Revolution Books with some piece of news. She'll give us later about people being arrested. Okay, okay, Raul, it's 5 o'clock. Huh? What is that?
Well, anyway, I'm actually here with one of the artists that's working under the umbrella term of the very iconic Revolution Books.
Oh, here.
I was mentioning that one of the publishing company is doing books that are focusing and have focused on social movements and as well as political discourse. Engaging with good stuff. I'm glad that regardless of this exhibition, it's important that that type of activism happens. But that was part of the catalyst of the exhibition that it could somehow help push that because part of the forefront of trying to do it. Here we go, fantastic. Jane, this is Jane.
Speaking about this particular fellows. All right, are we all here?
Elizabeth is here with me in the office.
Okay, I'm.
Walk up. Sorry.
Okay, you're in the street.
I'll be
Very good.
careful. Yes,
Yeah,
I'm ready.
That's quite the background, Frank.
Watch out of it.
So you want to join in?
I always bring my scotch.
Okay. Very good. And I will be here quietly. Okay. All right. I'm stable.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, whenever you're ready, we can start anytime.
Bye-bye.
Yeah? Okay. Frank is on the street in front of White Box. Nice. That's
Yeah,
very
that's a
nice.
cool background.
How do I mirror the image? I don't know. It would be
Very
great.
good. Excellent. Excellent. Okay, Eleanor,
Yes,
are you ready?
Yes.
sure.
All right. Very good. So welcome to White Box Harlem. This is our third attempt at doing a presidential election series. And we have about 77 artists collaborating.
I know, but
And today, we have Eleanor Hardy speaking about her book, Doomsday Dreams, and the Apocalyptic in Art, which I would say the Apocalyptic in life as well, I would imagine. And on November the 3rd, you'll receive more information. We'll do our typical presidential election night performances with Frank Hechter right there in front of the white box, being the director of the Martin Siegel Theater Center at CUNY Graduate Center, who's bringing us Unlimited Collective and the Living Theater to do Albert Camus first play ever presented in English for us.
we're already committed, but it's good to have as many
To his left is Abu Farman, many have known as an artist years back, and now he's an anthropologist working out of the New School and also in Brazil in the Amazon, and runs a beautiful organization that work with indigenous peoples that you can go on the website and find out more. And Raul Zamudio is to the left of Abu. Raul is a curator, writer, critic, and professor at the New School as well, and we're co-curating the show together. Terry Berkowitz, delightful artist with a gorgeous piece right now in Long Island City. Big billboard. She's going to tell us about it later on. And myself, who is just introducing you all during this conversation that Eleanor Hardy is going to begin. We may be joined by Tania Bruguera from Havana, Pablo Helguera from somewhere, maybe. So we'll just let him in gently. And Christina Davis, who's trying to connect with us, Canadian artist who also runs a beautiful publication, Public, out of the University of Toronto. So without much further ado, Raul, are you there? Raul Zamudio? Okay, no. Then I'm going to pass the mic to Eleanor. Would you please begin the soiree and tell us a little bit about Doomsday Dreams and how is the apocalyptic in art relevant right now, since you wrote your fabulous book that I keep rereading and rereading. It makes so much sense today. Please.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. And thank you for everyone who's participating. And I'm very much looking forward to hearing what everyone has to say. Well, as we all know, it's 10 days to the election, and it's hard not to feel very apocalyptic these days. When I published Doomsday Dreams, there it is, Doomsday Dreams. It came out about a year ago, I think in October, last October. I couldn't have imagined how incredibly apocalyptic things were going to seem now. Even at that time, of course, we felt that we were moving into some dark times, but we really couldn't have imagined this. The book itself is an outcome of a long-term interest of mine in the relationship between art, politics, and religion. And it comes on the heels of another book that I wrote about the Catholic imagination in contemporary art, where I looked at the ways in which artists were raised as Catholics, how that impacted on the kind of work that they made. For this book, I wanted to look at a wider swath of religious backgrounds and a wider swath of people. And I started thinking, I really had been thinking about it for a long time, but it became clear to me that the notion of apocalypse, especially as it has come to us through the Book of Revelation and, of course, many other religious apocalyptic texts, has had a profound influence on Western culture, who we are as a society, American society especially. And so the book is deals with international artists, but there is kind of a focus on America, and especially even at the time that I wrote it a year ago, it was clear that Donald Trump was a figure of apocalyptic proportions, that his whole way of dealing with reality was very much in keeping with the kind of the structure that one finds in the Book of Revelation and other apocalyptic texts. So just for a little bit of background, which probably most of you know, but I guess the apocalypse as portrayed in the Book of Revelation, and sort of that really comes out of an even much earlier kind of formulation that goes back to the Zoroastrians, is a narrative of history that sees history as an arc that is leading towards this sort of very explosive end, in which basically the world that we know it ends in a grand battle of good and evil. And before that happens, there are all kinds of horrendous things that happen. There's the rise of both the Messiah and also of many false prophets who seem to be messiahs, but lead their followers down to hell. And that one seems particularly relevant these days. And of course, the famous four horsemen of the apocalypse: war, pestilence, death, and famine. Again, these seem to be very easily translatable into contemporary times. What I was interested in doing with the book is to see how this framework has really it seems to underlie so many of the issues today. It really shapes the way that we think about our possibilities in ways that we're often not really conscious of. And of course, among the most obvious are the way in which it shapes our geopolitics. The clash of civilizations is very much, and actually has been explicitly described as this battle of good and evil, the notion of kind of insiders and outsiders, and the casting out of those who are not pure enough. The idea that it's only through sort of a purification of society that we will finally reach that wonderful end, which is the New Jerusalem, which only comes after the destruction of the world as we know it. And of course, even things like the way that we think about, certainly the way we think about the environment, we have a tendency, I think, to think about it very apocalyptically, to think about, sort of the end. And part of this is, of course, exacerbated by films and novels and sort of popular culture. But the idea that we are reaching some kind of end where there will be no more life on Earth. So it in so many ways, our world is shaped by this apocalyptic thinking. So what I wanted to do in the book was to investigate how artists have dealt with this, or how artists have been shaped by this. And as in my previous book, I wasn't looking for artists who were explicitly going to be, religious, that were going to be, proselytizing for a particular point of view. But instead, I was interested in artists who had a sort of profound religious background, grounded in these often, these apocalyptic ideas, and how that shaped the way that they deal with their work, and also the way in which they would often use these apocalyptic notions as metaphors to deal with some of the most urgent issues today, including, of course, war, politics, ecology, even artificial intelligence. And now, of course, although it happened after I published the book, the pandemic. So what I did in the book was to deal with artists, talk about their religious backgrounds, and then talk about how that impacted in their work. So, for example, Keith Haring, many of these are artists who aren't usually thought of either in apocalyptic terms or in religious terms. So Keith Haring, who was raised in the Church of Christ, which is a very kind of fire and brimstone version of Christianity, and did a number of works actually that were based on the Book of Revelation, worked with William Burroughs in particular on one series. And even all of his, his imagery, I think you can be really associated with the Book of Revelation. Or someone like Smithson, again, from a very, turns out, very strong Catholic background, went through a Catholic period, And, you know, he in fact did works that were based on the New Testament and on Dante, then sort of let that go for the kind of work that we know him about. But meanwhile, of course, his whole notion of entropy has a very apocalyptic quality, and the idea that you know, that we are sort of moving towards this time of complete stasis, in which, you know, again, everything that we know it will disappear. So I think, again, that idea is very influenced by his early upbringing. Douglas Gordon, another artist who's not usually associated with this, but comes from a Christian Science background, and who has done a number of works that explicitly talk about the battle of good and evil within the human soul. So all of these, so these were the kinds of artists I was interested in, the kinds of issues that I was interested in looking at. And so in writing the book, you know, I finished the book, it was the Trump era. And it was actually one of the reasons I kind of really wanted to get it out, you know, while Trump was, you know, still marauding. I was, you know, as we're hoping that won't be going on much longer. But one of the ways I think that you can understand Trump is to understand him again through this apocalyptic lens, that, you know, certainly his followers have embraced him, particularly the evangelical Christians have embraced him as a kind of messianic figure. He himself sees the world through the lens of this sort of good and evil, this battle of good and evil, in which he himself, of course, represents evil. And is so much about, you know, the sort of discarding the others, so much about othering, that it's again kind of very apocalyptic. What I couldn't have counted on when I wrote the book, of course, was the pandemic. But it's clear that even the way in which he has dealt with the pandemic is, you know, very much in keeping with this kind of apocalyptic framework. The way that he thinks about it, as seeing it as an external evil, the way that he continues to call it the China virus, the Wuhan virus, that this is something that came from outside, because this is, of course, a big part of the apocalyptic imagination, is that evil is this external thing which must be obliterated, must be fought and obliterated. And so that's how he's approached the virus as well, and in a way that often tends to be not helpful at all, because it doesn't allow, first of all, doesn't allow any kind of self-criticism on his part, but it doesn't allow us to really find solutions to the problem. And that, I think, is actually sort of the larger kind of question that I wanted to deal with in the book, is that to what extent does the apocalyptic imagination, as it runs through our culture, keep us from being able to find better ways of dealing with things? Is there another way to think about and constitute reality where we're not stuck into this battle between good and evil, insiders, outsiders, this you know, constant world of conflict? And while I was working on the book, actually, I was pretty far along in the book when I decided that I had the name Doomsday Dreams, because it seemed to kind of, to me, evoke what artists were doing. They were dreaming, they were thinking in terms of doomsday. But then I decided to Google it. And it turns out that doomsday dreams is actually a psychological condition. And this is a condition in which people who are experiencing great loss, divorce, death in the family, you know, some sort of profound event like this, have dreams of the end of the world. And I thought that was very interesting, because, of course, now I think all of us are having doomsday dreams of, you know, the end of democracy or the possibility of that. But one of the things about the doomsday dreams is that the people who have these dreams to have a feeling, they have a sense of a loss of agency, that this thing is inevitable, this horrible thing that is happening to them is something that they struggle against, and that they cannot act and do anything about. And so, you know, this, I think, is the thing that we need to we really need to combat, is this feeling of the kind of inevitability of the horrors that seem to be rushing down on us. And so I think that's one of the reasons why I think I love the name of your show, Good Trouble, because I think that's clearly what the artists in the show are trying to do, are trying to find ways, I think, that to reinstate, to reinvigorate agency among all of us, so that we aren't simply just steamrolled by the events that seem to be kind of rushing down on us. So I would love now to hear from the rest of you, and it's a very stellar group here. And Juan, will you be calling on them?
I wasn't planning to, because
or should we? I mean, I'm not sure.
But we're a small bunch, maybe who out of all of you guys would like to, like this, you're gonna respond or a comment. Frank? Frank? Do you hear us?
Can you hear me? Yeah, can you hear me?
No.
Yes.
Now we do.
Yeah, now we do. Yes, hey, hello, and live outside from the white box. I think the theme of apocalypse, of course, has been throughout centuries or millennia as part of artists. Already in the 8th century, we do know that there are scriptures, of people thinking the times is there, and they are right. Everybody is right. It's time we live in will end, and times, but will be reborn, will come back. And the question is whether it is a circle or whether it's linear. And I think in theater, we have a big engagement with the apocalypse. Romeo Castellucci from Italy did Dante's Inferno just now, and the Purgatorio, as did Teatro delle Albe. The famous Living Theater did actually the Paradise Now, because they felt instead of the apocalypse, we have to create the paradise on earth, was their famous show. Kurtowski did Apocalypsis cum figures. He worked 4 years. His last work, one of the most significant pieces in the history of theater, is about the idea of the apocalypse. My comment would be that the meaning also has changed. Before it was revelation, also vision. It was not always doomsday. I think the original idea was kind of the uncovering of the divine in the realities we live in as a possibility. And I think that both of this is connected, that we also have to look that artists right now are trying to uncover the divine amidst all spiritual, but also political connections. And I did a little bit of research, and it said that actually the word eucalyptus, the plant is connected to apocalypse. Eu means covered in soil, and calypsis, it means hidden. So the germ of the eucalyptus plant is covered with soil, but it will come out. It's protected by a shell, but so also the meaning that something will be reborn, and like eucalyptus, it will be hopefully also helpful. But artists as Hieronymus Bosch or others, so many have focused, on the paradise and the earthly hell, and as Dante pointed out in his great Purgatorio, you only got into Purgatorio when there was a chance of hope, when there was a chance of rejuvenation and understanding, and he believed in that. So we are, I think, in hell and in purgatory, but the idea is we go through that to enlightenment, and nobody said it's going to be fast to get through hell, but we are in it. So I think you are very right in it, but also we have to see that in that idea of apocalypse is also this eucalyptus. I think there's the idea of rejuvenation.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that the notion that of paradise, well, although that can be problematic as well, because sometimes, the notion if paradise comes after the great conflict, it means that you have to purge, the evil, and then paradise comes. But I think that the idea it's very important to have hope, and it is an aspect of the apocalypse is hopeful, because it's also it's about the end, but it's also about justice. And that's why one of the reasons it's been so appealing for so many years, so many millennia, is because it's about justice, that at the end of time there will be justice for the weak and those, the oppressed. And so that's a very appealing.
I must confess, until this morning, I thought it was this morning, because you sometimes do the mistake in terms of hours.
L-A-C-H-T.
Morning.
Right. Because in Europe you use the different numbers for the hours. You don't use PM, you use 17 hours. That's correct.
L-A-C-H. So I'm flying on your wave a little bit stunned, and trying to figure out how Aimé and myself can contribute interestingly to this discussion, the level of discussion you're having now. As I realize when I'm listening to you, that it feels very far away here in Europe, actually, about the direct connection you live and you make political situation and the apocalypse in itself. It's quite striking. Seen from outside, it looks more like, if I may say. But yeah, I can't say more for the moment. I'll leave it on.
Would you say that, Jean-Pierre? Would you say that it's much more of an American theme, so to speak, to worry about the apocalypse, and you guys in Europe are a little bit past that, more atheistic than the American?
I do think so. I do think so. You have this religious background, and of course, it's. I was thinking about suddenly my work or Emmy's work, and of course you might have glimpses of that, but with a certain distance, because we don't actually feel we're living it. I think not at the level that you have in which politics now is so much part of your lives that it's in everything you breathe and everything you do, and as an artist you immediately have a position, which is something where it's a point where we're not at the same point, I realize. And so I'll be listening with great interest, because I feel more like an observer than an actor in that conversation, I would say. But it's very interesting, it's fascinating.
And I think actually what you are making a very interesting point about there is something very American about the apocalyptic imagination, and it's partly, it goes back, to our history. Even Christopher Columbus, was, believing that he had discovered, that the notion of America as the new paradise, the new Jerusalem, and that notion of American exceptionalism, runs again through our politics, and it's part of, I think, what's in a kind of very bastardized form is what's going on with Trump as well. So there is something particularly American, I think, about this obsession with the apocalypse. Although I think that it's also, clearly, historically, Europe has also been, kind of rent by wars that were defined and understood apocalyptically as well. But you're right, it's something very American about the particular, the contemporary iteration of it.
Yeah, I understand, and I understand more now, just listening by you, how much it is alive, and it's quite different. I think there's also more Europe has been mourning its decline for a longer time. Also, been active, I guess, in everyone's mind. I don't talk about the politics.
Yeah, we're just realizing our decline now. Maybe that's a difference. Yeah. So someone else who should
Raul? Raul Zamudio?
Okay, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, so anyway, I'm here inside of the gallery space, and there's a lot of people here. Certainly monitoring the protocols, but there's a few things I wanted to sort of add to Eleanor's project, and that was that on the one hand, the sort of apocalyptic aspect that she has so eloquently shine light on in terms of how it's been wrapped into the ideologies of the Republicans. Can everybody see me?
Yes.
Okay, so the other thing is it's also very much about a particular mentality that we could even subsume into that, such things as like flat earthers, or let's say people who are anti-intellectual or who deny science. So the sort of almost kind of reactive medieval sort of consciousness that seems to attract individuals. As interesting enough, Eleanor also said there's a certain kind of psychological character type that seems to be somewhat
gullible to that, if I could use that word. So I think her text is incredible, but it's also can be much more encompassing to include other aspects of Trump supporters, if you will, or those that are very reactionary, that can include a kind of anti-intellectualism or anti-science individuals, or even those that have this kind of anti-intellectual attitude about their fellow country persons. And I find that an aspect of that too. And not to kind of increase the kind of conspiratorial moment that we're living in, there is this very interesting author, I don't know if you've heard of him, who was actually the bass player for Blondie. And he's now living in London, Gary Lackman. His focus has been on sort of the occult, with doing biographies of Carl Jung and I think Rudolf Steiner as well. But he recently published a book called Dark Star Rising. And it's basically looking at what he identified or what he was proposing as this kind of occult undercurrent of some of the alt-right, particularly with like Pepe the Frog, and sort of linking it up with Trump's upbringing. And his father had took him to a church. I forget the actual person who was running this church, but it was somebody associated with the so-called New Thought movement. And basically the premise is that they think that thinking precedes any kind of material experience and so forth. And so he was tying in this alt-right element that had this kind of occult undercurrent with Trump's rise to power. I don't know if any of you've heard of any of this type of, or maybe I'm just psychobabbling here, but anyway, I thought was very interesting about Eleanor's scope and how it seems to shine a light on a lot of other phenomena that we seem to be witnessing today. But it's true that, as I think Eleanor had said, that a lot of the works here, although they might directly focus on social or political issues or conditions that we're living in, that aspect of apocalypticism is certainly hanging in there like a very strange and bizarre specter. That's certainly the case. But anyway, I would like to pass the baton to anyone else.
But Christine Davis, who just joined us, is an artist from Toronto, living in New York, and also is a publisher of Public, where Cabinet got a hint for existing as Cabinet from Public some years back.
Well, I'm Canadian, so.
Canadian, so I would love to hear.
Right.
We'd love to hear.
So let me respond to this, which is, I do believe this is an American apocalypse. I mean, I've only been living here for 4 years. I moved here and then Trump was elected. So that was astounding. This was not part of my plan. The American news cycle astounds me, for one thing, because it just continuously produces and consumes its own events. There's nothing happening outside of it. So that's sort of part of the apocalyptic feeling. I mean, my participation in this show, I'm interested in this moment historically, yes, but I mean, I'm also interested in questions around the divine and the planetary and how we can think about what constitutes our material and spiritual relationship to this earth. Like, I'm very interested in Ovid, for example, who I would like to read you a quote from Ted Hughes' translation of Ovid, where he says, "Now I'm ready to tell how bodies are changed into different bodies. Before sea or land, before even sky, which contains all, nature wore only one mask, since called chaos. A huge agglomeration of upset, a bolus of everything, but as if aborted, and the total arsenal of entropy already at war within." So I think we are in an apocalyptic political moment, but I also believe that the concept of the body, historically mobile as it is an organism that has structures within it already that are in a constant state of attack and defense, right? So the work that I produced for this show was kind of making a parallel between those two ideas. But as far as experientially, this is an American apocalypse. That's my feeling right now, and that it's a great moment. It's a historical juncture. It's going to go one way or the other, and it's also the death of an idea of being able to export planetary justice. I think that is so part of the American imagination. Having lived in Paris, Canada, and now New York, I feel like I've experienced all that. And I really relate to this idea of having, Europe has already accepted its earlier apocalypse in many ways, the failure of certain systems. So I'm just very curious and slightly frightened. I can't vote, by the way, but those are my thoughts.
So when you say American, you don't mean Canadian. You mean...
No, I don't, and I am more and more aware of the difference. Particularly just the simple value of what's a life, right? What's the value of a life? The life of an organism. Like what? It's profoundly different.
Yeah. So what do you think, Eleanor?
Yeah.
Eleanor, what do you think that wonderful little divide that's seen from abroad? Perhaps they don't understand how different Canada can be from the US, right? We make the same cars, we eat the same foods, what's the same junk, etc. Yet there's this, more of an atheist, quietly atheist culture there of many cultures.
Yeah, it's probably it's probably two factors. One is perhaps not so profoundly religious as, American culture is just, it's an outlier, among developed countries in terms of how religious it is. And again, that sort of goes back to our history. And the other thing maybe also, the sort of the notion of the American project, that the American was, that it was supposed to be, exporting democracy, this idea, and again, it goes back to American exceptionalism, which is not something I think that you find in Canada.
No.
And so sort of in a way, it's like the demise of that, that we expected so much of what America was supposed to be. And yet, when it turns out that that's not really possible, it's far more devastating than if we had perhaps a more reasonable notion of what our place was in the world. So it's sort of from falling from this height in a way.
I agree.
Could you say that there's also a view of the end of the empire becoming much more really real, right? Mm-hmm. Because we're always thinking the Chinese are emerging, but the Chinese were great empires twice at least in history. And right. She wants to go back to that empire in a soft manner, right? They're doing what we don't do any longer. We don't build roads, we don't lend money to the IFM or anything. The Chinese quietly are building out this enormous global empire for the first time. So are we in this artist that you mentioned and so are we not touched enormously, even if it's subconsciously, Eleanor, by the fact that we are witnessing the beginning of like the Roman Empire?
Well, that I think it's also, I think that it one of the, I guess, apocalypse has been interpreted in many ways and used in many ways historically, but it sort of underlies the notion of progress that is so much about America. The idea that history has this, it has this direction, and that we are moving towards, we Americans, with the exceptionalism, have felt, we are moving towards this kind of democratic world or whatever. But the idea of progress is kind of, it's very hardwired, I think, into the American psyche. And so the kind of things that you're talking about, the rise of China, these things, our own decline, they don't fit in with that narrative. And so that's also, I think, part of why this is such a traumatic moment, because that, that history that we thought we were inevitably moving towards, that end, it's clearly not the case.
Well, I think that the virus foregrounded that, it foreclosed that, or accelerated that decline, right? Because it revealed the incapacity of the social body, the governing body, to actually address to deal with it, right? That's the way it feels to me, right? Because other countries were able to rapidly mobilize various systems, right? Whether to greater and lesser success, but America has not been able. It's just been stuck fighting, right, over what its version of progress and a future should be, right? With just basic things which you live in other countries. It's so astounding that you're still arguing over Roe versus Wade. It's astounding that you don't understand that universal health care costs less. It costs less. So, right? And it costs less to look after pregnant mothers and newborn babies. It just costs the entire society less. So,
part of that, I mean, really move on to other people, but part of that I think is also because in this country socialism is equated with communism, and that goes back to the Cold War, which again was a very apocalyptic structure.